I'm very excited to introduce our next honoree. We basically grew up together at WCCO TV, I think in our early 20s. I'm so happy she came back tonight for this. Arguably one of the most tenacious reporters ever graced this market, and even a better person. Carolyn Lowe spent 34 years at WCCO Television, covering crime and cold cases with her reporting featured on 2020, Oprah. Probably got more recognition being on Oprah than anything you did in your career, probably. Court TV and Forensic Files. She has dedicated her career to seeking truth for victims, as we all know, especially from the Jody Huisentruit and Jacob Wetterling cases to countless investigative reports that earned her national awards, including the prestigious Alfred DuPont Columbia Award. In addition to journalism, Carolyn holds a private investigator's license in California, a degree in law enforcement, and a master's in police leadership. She has trained with the FBI Citizens Academy and volunteered in crime prevention. She is now also a Hall of Famer.
Caroline Lowe is not your typical TV news crime reporter. She is modest, she is unassuming, she has a calm demeanor, but be careful, do not mistake her humility for weakness. Caroline Lowe is a badass. Are you ready?
It's all about survival. At the skills range, we learn the basics of handling pistols and shotguns. Day after day, police see people at their worst.
You're in my house, jackass! You gonna tell me what I'm under arrest?
Horrified neighbors duck for cover. 3 officers shot in a running gun battle. We learn how to safely pursue someone who is running from the law under the worst weather conditions.
When I first met Caroline, she was already a hard-driving, very smart reporter. No matter what was going on or what any other station had, you knew that Caroline would come up with a story. I was a 6 o'clock news producer, and I needed that story all the time, and I could always count on Caroline to really dig into something, make it interesting, make it factual, make it really important. She seems like a golden retriever, but she's really a bloodhound because she's kind, she's empathetic, she's caring, but she never loses sight of what that story should be and what she owes her audience in telling that story. She took a beat to the nth degree.
Certainly there are questions about her loss of memory, questions about vital conversations that were not recorded, and questions about the description of the man who stabbed.
She didn't just phone it in. She didn't just make a few contacts. She knew everybody, and everybody knew her, and you knew you would get the best reporting and the best sources, and she would really dig into a story unlike anybody else.
Volunteers and police officers searched the Midway area of St. Paul after Cassie disappeared from the Jehovah Lutheran Church.
Police say they are as far away today from solving Cassie Hansen's murder as they were the day her body was found.
But every murder she took personally. Every crime she took personally. She opened her heart to police and their families and what they were going through, and also victims.
She cares so much about the victims of crime, like a Jody Huisentruit or a Jacob Wetterling or Jacob's family, feel like Caroline Lowe was part of their family. You know, Caroline never lost it, but it doesn't mean that she didn't feel sadness or sympathy or empathy. She had all of those things, but she channeled it toward finding the truth and finding the answers. That is really a unique quality for Caroline Lowe, that she does that. It made her stories so human and yet so interesting and so relatable.
She was deeply sourced. She was trusted by police, trusted to the point where they would lift up the crime scene tape and let her come through and watch a homicide investigation from beginning to end, something that is unheard of nowadays. Well, even though she was trusted, she could be critical to the point where people were like, oh my goodness, really? And I'm thinking of her Missing the Beat series.
Now, Caroline won that prestigious award last month for a report that she filed on police misconduct.
Caroline really pioneered the multi-part series and embedding in a police department.
The fourth murder of the week. A body found on the sidewalk near the convention center. Once again, only our camera is allowed inside police lines.
Caroline brought the audience into the behind the scenes of what the police did. And it wasn't the exciting catch the bad guys every episode. It was the nitty-gritty of police work. And I think it really improved the understanding of the audience and the community about what the police go through. She had such a kind and courteous way of relating to her sources that the police said, you know, probably not a great idea to let a reporter sit with us for weeks and weeks at a time, but we trust you, Caroline. And the trust was well placed. She was the right person for that job because she accurately reported and represented what they did, how they did it, and I think it was a service. It was a win-win to the police and to the audience.
It's hard to take everything she has done and squeeze it down into a plaque because her work is a lifetime of work that has affected many, many people directly.
Kind of amazing to me about watching someone who is not a relative of this person, is not an investigator, but somebody who seems to be pursuing answers with the same level of love and caring as if it was one of your family members.
I do consider her part of the family. I've never met her, but she's part of our news family. She was doing what we do when her life was, we believe, taken away, and she's part of our family. You get connected. You get to know their moms and dads and their sisters and brothers. How do you not use the skills that you have, experience you have, try to help somebody else? It is so purposeful. Somehow all of this, what we're doing at Find Jodi, is going to help Jodi and maybe some other families.
Please welcome to the stage, as Pat Kessler called her, a badass reporter and an A+ human being, Carolyn Lowe.
Sorry, my bad eyes. Can I get the light? First of all, thank you all so much for this incredible honor. It was a huge surprise to get a call this past spring from Kathy Wurzer to tell me that I'd been inducted in the Hall of Fame. I didn't even know I'd been nominated, and it came on a really tough day when I was hitting a lot of dead ends on Jodi's case, was working, going nowhere, and to get that call was amazing. Thank you. Sorry. Thank you. I believe being a journalist was my calling, something that I was born to do. The first sign showed up when I was very young, and my mom said she and my dad were shocked to find me reading crime stories in the Washington Post when I was just 9 years old and asking them questions on the status of somebody's trial. 9-year-olds aren't supposed to do that, I guess. But somehow it fit. That calling continued long after I no longer worked in a TV newsroom. During these challenging times, I still live and breathe journalism every day, mostly from my home office now in California, focused on the search for Jodi Huisentruit. Tonight, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank some of the many people who made my journalism journey possible. First, to the countless crime victims, and we saw some of them in this story, this incredibly touching profile. for the crime victims and their families who allowed me to share their stories, often welcoming our news crews into their homes on the worst days of their lives to share stories and also to help find justice. I'd like to also thank the many people behind the scenes in the newsroom, especially the photographers, producers, including several who are with me tonight from WCCO, Dave Cheney, Tom Avilas, Julie Kramer, and most recently, Brian Wise, who's from KAL, who's part of our Find Jody team. Julie supervised our very first investigative series on Jody 28 years ago, and she continues to give me insight and advice. And she, just this past June, when we marked the 30th anniversary of Jody's abduction, Julie and her husband, Joe Kimball, came to Mason City just to be there, to be a part. Dave and Tom, well, these guys had my back on some of the toughest days on the crime beat. Talented professionals, loyal friends who often risk their own safety to cover the news and get me home safely to my family. Dave still has scars from being attacked while on the crime beat. Tom was arrested for just doing his job when he, Dave, and I covered the protests during the 2008 RNC conference in St. Paul. To the many sources, many of them who are anonymous to this day, who trusted me with information, helped me inform our community about what was really going on, not just something put in a press release, part of official business. It's impossible to imagine trying to do my job on the crime beat today if the law enforcement agencies I covered were muzzling reporters with policies like some of what we're seeing being forced on journalists right now in Washington, D.C. As journalists, we must stand together united to not let that happen. Put aside our competitive differences so we don't have stuff force-fed to us and we don't do our digging and find what's really going on in our community, in our country, and the world. Thank you. Thank you. And this is something we're uncomfortable with. I have to admit, as a journalist, I'm so used to doing the multiple sides and not speaking out. But I think we're at a time when we need journalists more than ever, and it's important we keep doing our jobs as you're so much advocating here tonight. Some people I met decades ago in the crime beat are now dear friends whom I continue to work with. They include Minneapolis Police Inspector Charlie Adams, who's at our table tonight, and retired Minneapolis Sergeant Holly Kegel, who's part of our Find Jody team. Both of them have been key resources, have helped me as I go down the path trying to find answers about what happened to Jody. They're always there. They give me pushback. They give me encouragement. They are incredible resources. I'm also grateful to the viewers who watch my crime report, especially the ones in the first few years when I was painfully green, and boy did it show. I cringe when I watch some of those early stories like the ones you saw tonight, when my voice sounds like I'm reading a phone book. And when Tom Osmond, with his wonderful archive, suddenly pops up a story, I don't even remember doing that, it was so bad. But somehow the viewers stuck around, and I hope that they saw my commitment to getting the truth, getting the facts, even if I didn't do a very good job of delivering it. To the news managers like Ron Hamburg, who took a chance and gave me my first job at WCCO as a newsroom film librarian in 1977. I think I made $125 a week. Even though I had no background in journalism, he gave me a chance. To anchor legend Dave Moore and to Don Shelby and the CCO photojournalists who taught me the basics of gathering news and storytelling, those guys were my J school. I never had any formal journalism training. To Jane Helmke, who brought me back to Minnesota on special assignment to cover the final chapter of Jacob Wetterling's heartbreaking story for KARE 11. To Kathleen Choll, who hired me in my 50s, almost 60 in fact, to start a brand new chapter working for her station in San Luis Obispo and getting to work with my daughter Shelby, who is here tonight. And to the late John Lansing, who was always there on some of our toughest investigative reports at CCO, someone I know who'd be leading efforts now for journalistic independence. I'm grateful to the WCCO managers who allowed me to work as a police officer at the Minnesota State Fair for 8 summers, despite taking heat from some journalists who feared it would be too much of a conflict of interest and would ruin my credibility as a crime reporter. Some of those managers, like Scott Liven, who's here tonight, certainly had their reservations, and I understand them, but they never stopped me from trying to learn more, to try to be better at the beat I covered, to walk a mile, a few miles, in the shoes of a police officer. I think it enhanced my ability to cover the beat. Most importantly, thanks to my family, including my husband, Jack, who's here tonight, and my daughter, Shelby. They supported me when I worked long hours and holidays. Sometimes I had to leave early from family events like my son's 16th birthday dinner because a killer decided to confess that day, and Mom had to be on the news. As the first WCCO reporter to become a mom, I am grateful I was able to work a flexible part-time schedule for several years, often working from home long before a pandemic made it the norm, and I didn't get paid for most of what I did at home. Being a mom on the crime beat meant our kids often ate way too many SpaghettiOs. I'm still not a good cook, and they'll tell you that. And they watched too much TV while I was on the phone with sources working on a story that was supposed to be on my day off. Somehow, our kids turned out okay, and I got to keep doing the job I love. I'm also grateful my family continues to support my mission to find Jody. Shelby gave me this necklace in memory of Jody, which I wear in June, every June, because that's the month Jody was abducted, and the anniversary of her abduction is on my necklace, close to my heart. And my husband, Jack, continues to be a part of the mission as well. He's often an editor on the stories I write for our Find Jody website. In closing, I'd like to take a few moments to remember this Minnesota native who will never have a chance to be honored someday here at the Hall of Fame. I'm often asked why I'm so committed to Jody's journey 30 years later. The answer is simple, as we heard earlier. Jody was one of ours, part of our extended family. As journalists, I hope you'll continue to help keep Jody being visible and help in my mission for her family to bring them home for people like her niece Kristen, who's here tonight, so they can say goodbye to her in her hometown of Long Prairie, Minnesota. And before we go, the Hall of Fame has graciously agreed to let me show 30 seconds produced by Brian Wise from Find Jody that we put together this summer. It encapsulates our message. 30 years, it's time.